probably a special way of training, Jim.
Yeah, and Keith is very, very sensitive to the noise, and we've just worked it out through trial and error that this is the best way of being guided. The challenge is going to come when all the crowd noise at the end and with a steel band, so we'll just have to work that out when we get to it.
Yeah, and you've got quite a fast PB over the half marathon. How much more time do you think being untethered might add to your time?
This is probably going to be around 2 hours, maybe just before, but it depends how. If it gets really noisy, we might have to slow because I might lose direction. So it's about completing it, really.
And whose idea was it to go for a world record, Jim?
Oh, it's both of us. We've been. This has been our dream for.
This is probably going to be around 2 hours, maybe just before, but it depends how. If it gets really noisy, we might have to slow because I might lose direction. So it's about completing it, really.
And whose idea was it to go for a world record, Jim?
Oh, it's both of us.
Unbelievable footsteps, including the likes of Sting, Anton Decker, of course, Northeast icons, all of them. You've been here a while now. You've moved your family up to the Northeast. Have you realised just how huge the Great North Run is to this area?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've become very aware of, and I think full credit to everyone involved. So Brendan, the work that he's done to if I could, I would, and I would fully embrace these events to get people fit, whether that's walking, running, whatever it is one of the keys to life, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is one of the themes, or we're shining a spotlight on it anyway today, the power of running to change lives. And changing all our lives over so many races, well, certainly me, has taken years off.
never seen something like this. Derek, this is amazing. You're running with a bridge on your front. Graham's up the front. We'll go and find him in a minute. But just tell us how you came about with this one.
Well, as all best ideas do, we started having a chat in the local, and we thought we'll run the Great North Run with a 12-foot long tyne bridge for our charity, Team Ewan and the Cystic Fibrosis Trust.
Amazing. Now, how long did it take to make this bridge?
It was a slightly rushed job. Once the initial idea came about, we thought about it for about 9 months and then started work, and then over the period of probably about 3-4 weeks, we got it ready for last year's event and then made a few improvements over the last 12 months till today.
This is absolutely amazing. I'm going to make my way to the front. There's a lot of runners here. Look at this. Look at the detail. There's a troll in the middle of the...
At 11 o'clock. Before then, of course, we have the women going at 10:35, and then it's the women.
So strong at the moment.
And a multiple Paralympic gold medalist, Hannah Cockcroft, also going in the women's wheelchair race as well. So they're just about ready to go. They'll be the first to get the party underway today.
Fast times today.
Quickest time ever is just over 41 minutes for David Weir. We wonder if it will be his day again. He managed to win it last year for the 9th time. Can he make it 10? That would be something special. Lots of other headlines are going to be made today, but David Weir could make his own here as well. It's always a bit of a tough start because they move away quickly from the massed ranks on the central motorway next to the town moor, but then there's a bit of an up and down section as you head towards the Tyne Bridge, and a little bit of a climb up to the Tyne Bridge. But yes, they're not hanging about right from the start.
And this is actually quite deceptive because you probably only have about 150 metres before it drops, and then the speed of the chair runs away with you a little bit, and we're back onto is absolutely, you know, brutal, because if you're not in that pack at the start, by the time you hit the Tyne Bridge, it's almost impossible to chase it back. So Dave Weir's gone out pretty hard. He wants to try and string it out as much as possible. He wants to make it hard on the guys behind him. But it partly shows his confidence at the moment that he does take it out. Normally he likes to sit in the pack a little bit and watch. We've got Nathan Maguire, Dan Sidbury. On the left-hand side, you've got Nathan Maguire. The people that you'd expect to be here are there at the moment. And a little way back, the women are trying to just get a bit of draft in from the men. They can't race together, but they can take advantage of being towards the back of the pack.
Well, David Weir setting his stall out early here. As Tanny said, it's a very undulating section, a bit of a steep uphill there, then they drop down under a couple of bridges, and then another little uphill section up onto the Tyne Bridge. But they are away, and they are certainly not hanging around, and we could be in for a fantastic race here. David Weir going for his 10th in the wheelchair, and they're all going to have to try and hang on to him as long as they can.
Well, there they are, the elite women getting ready to go off in a couple of minutes' time. As always, a top-class field assembled here. Here's our pick of the pops.
Who's just fresh from a busy track and road season, to be fair, and I'd be really interested to see how she goes here. And another one of those for whom the kind of step up to the half marathon, maybe the marathon as well, is beckoning. Charlotte's going, I'm over here. Cameraman's finding Charlotte Purdy. There she is. Talked about her a few minutes ago. You might have heard us mentioning how she's heading towards so many big autumn marathons. For her, this is a great warm-up, as indeed it is for Peres Jepchirchir. Olympic champion, one of the best in the world. World champion as well. World record holder formerly at this event as well. Oh, sorry, Peres Jepchirchir is going to be next. Sharon Locady we're going to see first. Winner of the New York Marathon, because that's where Peres is heading in November.
The 2020 Olympic Marathon champion.
She really is a phenomenal racer, Peres, and always has a bit of a smile on her face as well. She's a good character. Really looking forward to see what she's got in store for us today. Won't be loaded at the front of the women's race, but if she wants to run quick, these are great conditions to do. I know it's going to be warm for so many people, but for the elite athletes, they'll really be looking forward to this, I'm sure. So the elite women's race gets underway in the 2023 Great North Run. And Paula, good morning to you in the combox.
Good morning.
What are you looking forward to here? We've mentioned Peres, she's the outstanding favourite to win here, but do you think she's going to go for it?
I think she will have half an eye on that course record, Bridget Kosgei, 64.28, which is extremely quick. As you said, conditions warm, but not really too warm, and I think fits in pretty much perfectly. Breaking away Charlotte Purdy, trying to go with Jepchirchir and Sharon Locady, who did surprise everybody with that victory in New York last year. Also probably building back to there again and wanting to consolidate the victory, but straight away Peres Jepchirchir seems to be head down, just focused on the road ahead of her and setting off with an eye on a good time out there today, if not a course record.
Yeah, we're not too sure what to expect from Sharon Locady, because hasn't raced for a while, but when you're a marathon runner, that's not always a sign. You spend months and months and months preparing for your next big race, and this is the same for her. So it'll be interesting to see how she goes here. Charlotte Purdue will hang on to them as long as she can, I'm sure, but you just have to be careful about that. One or two others to mention. Sonia Samuels, 44 Sonia now. She hasn't run the Great North Run since she won the junior race. Has been one of our great runners and marathon as well. Apparently, Nick, her husband, tells me she's in great shape. Really looking forward to this. So first time she's run the actual Great North Run since she won the junior race. So good luck to Sonia at the back of that little group there, which is currently, I guess, going to be contesting fourth. But again, if Charlotte doesn't have such a good race, any one of these could perhaps pick Charlotte up later as well. But hopefully Charlotte will be rewarded for going off quickly here.
Yeah, just settling into the slipstream, if you like, of the big two in the race. And I think for Charlotte, the biggest danger is, as you said, not overcommitting. She is at some point in this race probably going to find herself running on her own, but to try and minimize that as much as possible, but not take too much out of the tank too early on.
So the first hill out of the way. Everybody thinks it's technically a downhill race, the Great North Run. Where we start is higher up than where we finish. It's almost sea level in South Shields, but there are a few undulations on the way. And the amount of people who tell me it's a hilly course, it is not, but I'm calling them undulations. So we can see already, Paula, that Charlotte is, I think she must be thinking that, ooh, they've obviously decided to go off a little bit quick. I think you must do that. You have to go off and just work, well, how fast are they going? And then you have to make a quick decision.
Yeah, I think as you could see on the graphic there, the first part is downhill, so you kind of can afford to a little bit overcommit, if you like, in that stage, but she doesn't want to get caught into running much too quickly for her to be able to finish and to hopefully challenge her personal best on this course today as well. She is in the build-up for the Berlin Marathon, so that's only a couple of weeks for her into that. So this is really a good test for her to be able to run a personal best time.
Well, David Weir, that looks to be heading up towards Hughes Roundabout area, so they've well into the race, beyond 3 miles, heading up to 4 miles. And again, it's these, so on these little up and down sections, Tanny, I mean, are these places where if you are going to get away, you try and do that?
I mean, that's where you can really make it difficult for people. Dave Weir's obviously feeling very confident because coming over the Tyne Bridge, he put a big kick in, and the guys were having to work really hard to pull him back in, and then, you know, fairly exhausted by the time they get to him, and he just pulled straight over to force Dan Sidbury to the front to make sure that he works hard. So, you know, Dave's really smart at where he sits in the pack, so he'll know what he's doing. He's probably going to have another couple of goes to try and break them up again. And Nathan Maguire just sitting behind Dave Weir in the long sleeve top, probably a little bit warm for that today.
Yeah, Sidbury second last year behind David Weir, and the four of them now moved away. And this is a little flat section, as I said. Very shortly they'll just hit a little bit of a couple of rises that take them up to the Hughes Roundabout. Again, a little bit of an opportunity if somebody is feeling really good to try and break this group up a little bit more. I think we're expecting a lot of people out on the route. There always is in the Great North Run, but they'll be starting to come out of their houses once they've seen our coverage start. It's a fantastic day to be watching.
I'm delighted to say a woman with an implausible amount of energy has joined me. Amy Fuller, former Olympian and reporter, is alongside me. She has a very special task today. And we believe, Amy, this is a first. You are going to run the whole of the Great North Run and report at the same time.
Yeah, I believe it's a first. In fact, we're going to claim it as a first.
It definitely
Why
is.
not? So I'm going to be on the ground, running in amongst it, capturing all of the emotion of this incredible race with my fantastic producer, who's got to carry this.
Right. This is basically how people can get in touch.
Number run.
My second Great North Run. First one was 10 years ago. I was a little bit later. I didn't have 2 children, so there's a little bit of extra weight going on there, but I've got a lot more motivation for it.
And that's the main thing, isn't it, Izzy? To be able to come out here and you've got the profile, you know, you're on the telly, but actually to be here among 60,000 people doing an amazing thing, how does that make you feel?
It's just so humbling, and everyone's got their own story and running for their own reason, and just to be a part of it and amongst
Well, good luck to them and to everybody else who is, I'm sure, just getting those last few nervous moments out of the way. A few latecomers will be desperately trying to get themselves to the start on time. But there are lots of waves, and I'm sure they'll all make it. Not everybody gets away at 11 o'clock. Well, it was 10:35 when these two got going, and they're well through the first 2 miles, and are going quick as well. Sharon Lokedi of Kenya and her teammate Paris Jepchirchir, one of the best, if not the best in the world at marathon and half marathon. She's a great racer. She's run the fast times as well. And these two have completely dropped Charlotte Purdue. Or maybe, I think, Paula, more likely that Charlotte's thought, this is a bit quick for me, and has very wisely dropped off it.
Yeah, I think we're just getting the split times from Mark Butler there. So 10:06 through the second mile, 5:03, so perfectly even pace for them despite those undulations. And I think it's a wise decision from Charlotte not to overcommit at this point in the race and to stick to her own race plan. She'll know, and she'll be able to tune in to what feels right for her on this course today. And it's going to be a lonely run out there for Charlotte. She'll have to stay very, very focused, but good prep for that Berlin Marathon coming up. And the real race is hotting up here, because at the moment they look very evenly matched. Early days yet, though.
So they've made the turn towards Gateshead Stadium along the bypass. A little hill here, then they drop down, and they've got a nice flat section for a good mile and a half up towards Heworth. It is warm, as I mentioned, but for the elite runners, these are the sort of conditions which you will genuinely enjoy. And once it gets kind of, you know, into the high 20s, then that gets a little bit more difficult. But certainly for a half marathon, marathons are different, but for a half marathon, 19, 20 degrees, no wind, really is a fantastic day for trying to run quick here. So as Paula said, good fast pace being set. I always think you sort of need to look at 5K on the Great North Run, because it's so up and down the first 2-3 miles. You get to 5K and it settles down then, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you're able to get a better idea then of how that's going to project for a finishing time. But certainly setting out with a vengeance, exactly on, in fact, just 1 second under that course record pace established by Bridget Kosgei that perhaps they are shooting for. And a quick update on Charlotte back down the road. She was 10:23, so 2 miles. So
I think we had a bit of a break in the wheelchair race. Sidbury, as mentioned, was second last year. That's a big gap he's got, Tanny.
It's huge, and when we last saw them, there were 4 together in the pack, and just after the 4 mile mark, Dan put in this huge effort to get away from them. Dave was sitting behind, wasn't showing much inclination to chase, was probably hoping that Maguire or Smith was going to do it. And now he's got a big lead. I mean, probably 150 metres at the moment. Finishing time, we're looking at about 41 minutes maybe. The second half is slower, but the confidence in Dan Sidbury at the moment is just amazing. We wouldn't have been expecting to see him break so early.
Lokedi and Chepchirchir. We'll actually probably be able to see the stadium on the left, Gateshead International Stadium. Neither of these two have graced the track there, but many great distance runners have, including Mo Farah and a few others who are on show here today. You run at Gateshead many times, Paula?
I did, yeah. I think I might have won a 1500 at Gateshead once.
Now that's a collector's item. You got proof?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be an old black and white clip somewhere.
We'll just pull out and you'll be able to see it. There it is. And, well, you can actually wind the clock back even further in the great cross-country races that used to be on the bowl that have now got, as you can see there, football pitches and hockey and the rest of it back behind the stadium itself. So around about 3 miles at Gateshead Stadium, and look at the crowds that are gathering on the footbridges as well. Great vantage point. And when the masses come through, the 50-odd thousand that follow Charlotte and the others very, very shortly, these roads get completely filled. And they fill both sides of the carriageway all the way down until they get to Whitemare Pool, where they have to make the left turn and kind of get squeezed around that corner, but they've managed to get themselves a little spread out by that point.
So this is back to the chasing pack. So we've got Dave Weir and John Boy Smith working really hard to try and pull it in. I think Dave sort of looked up and saw how big the gap was and just decided it was too much to let Daniel Sidbury try and get away. And Nathan Maguire is now chasing on his own behind, and not too far behind. Leader in the women's race is Sammy Kinghorn, who's having a fantastic race. She's nearly a minute ahead of Eden Rainbow. So it's going to be a long haul for this, because Dave is just sitting in behind very nicely. He's only doing as much as he has to do and trying to play a really smart, tactical race. So this is now just coming into a bit of a tight turn on the roundabout before you get a nice long straight again. See there, just asking the bike to move a little bit away, give him a bit more space on these tight turns.
Yeah, bottom of the lane, just around the roundabout, and away they go. And they're well into the race, but meanwhile, back at the start, Gabby's got somebody else to talk to.
Has made a massive difference to both myself and many other people. It is called Gym Possible, and before I found out about it, I didn't really do much exercise at all. I have been going for a few years now, and I can already tell what a positive impact it has made on my life. It has certainly made me healthier, both physically and mentally.
Fantastic, and I hope it all pays off today and you have a fantastic day in the sunshine out there. I'm sure you'll get a lot of support on the course. Okay, let's see who Jeanette has for us now.
I mean, you need friends like this.
Up, Sammy Kinghorn is, well, she's tearing up the road at the minute. Tanny, she's miles ahead.
She had a fantastic race. She absolutely maximised the fast start. She's now 1 minute and 14 ahead of Eden Rainbow Cooper, who's about 2 minutes ahead of Hannah Cockcroft. So she's now just chasing the men in front of her, trying to make up as much ground as she possibly can.
Yeah, I saw Sammy actually win in the Zurich Diamond League in the wheelchair race and a fantastic sprint finish on, what was that, a week and a half ago, something like that. So she's in good form if she needed to sprint, but it isn't looking like a sprint finish at the moment. She's forging ahead. Well, pressure on in the women's race as well. Peres Jepchirchir has not hung around either, and you can see, I think Sharon Lokedi here, Paula, is just trying to hang on. A little look from Peres here to see, you can see how she's pushing on. She wants to see if it's having any effect.
Yeah, she's definitely turning the screw a little bit and just trying to see whether there is any response from Lokedi in terms of being able to match her and keep the position alongside. It has slowed a little bit. That fourth mile is more uphill as well, but a 5:13 for that one, which has dropped them a little bit back off that 2019 course record pace of British Kosgei, which is not surprising really, given that she set that in the build-up to then setting the world record in Chicago back in 2019. Back on level terms now, though, Lokedi.
Yeah, little rise there. They're beyond Hewitt roundabout, heading towards the 5 mile point. But as Paula said, still all to play for there. A little look from Peres, but yeah, two of them locked together for now. Very tough conditions, very hot it was, and he got to about 35k. The Ethiopians really had put a strong team together, and he had to hopefully saving himself for better days, such as today. So not quite sure what to expect from the former world champion, but of Mo Farah, Olympic bronze medalist, and you see their world marathon bronze medalist, Bashir Abdi. Before, one of Spain's top athletes. But he will be pretty formidable today.
Race number 1.
So you might not have heard of this guy.
Olympic champion, the 6-time
Sir Mo Farah.
representing Great Britain.
4 Olympic titles, 6 world titles, and that only is half the story. This is his race. This is where he loves to be, and we are so pleased he has chosen the Great North Run. Here we go then. Mo's last time round the block, one more tilt at the windmill, one more race to South Shields. Eddie Howe gets them underway. Over 50,000 people invited to what must join in the fun. Well, Paula, finally, she's got away.
Yeah, definitely got away, and that is clear daylight now. In fact, 7 seconds through 5 miles of a gap that's been built up by Perez Chepchirchir. She was 25:30 through 5 miles, so slipped a little bit from that 64.5-minute pace, but still very much on for a quick time here today and all on her own. So now it is only about the clock, I think, for Chepchirchir. Lokedi's made the decision to let her go, or not being able to stay with her at this point. And so now we have the first 3 running in isolation back down the road.
As well, do fantastic work right across the northeast. So many of the northeast charities, this is their big day today. This is when they can raise so many funds, get their awareness increased as well. Of course, we have plenty of national charities as well who are being represented. We'll again mention them as we go along. And it's always a sad day as well to remember people. And I know that Julie Richardson, who's a former runner, and all of us had in the same team together, Wendy Addison, who died last December from Alzheimer's disease. And checked out from Perez Chepchirchir's pace and has slotted back into something a bit more comfortable for her, 6 miles just beyond the White Mare Pool turn. Charlotte Purdue is, we still think, in third. We'll check on that, but she's quite a long way back behind Lokedi, who is, Paula, I mean, we talk about the quality of these women. You know, Sharon Lokedi on the world stage, she won New York last year. That was a bit of a shock, to be fair, but she is a phenomenal athlete as well.
She has, and I think that it certainly boosted her confidence to have that phenomenal victory in New York last year, and to be able to build on that and still running very, very strongly out there. Charlotte Purdue, incidentally, is still in third. She's about 2 minutes ahead of fourth, so very much in isolation there is she, coming into her shot, so still running very, very strongly, and as we said, just focused in her own little world, tuning into her own body, her own pace, as indeed the first 3 are out there today. And Perez Chepchirchir, a great example of that, dropped that 6th mile down to below 5 minutes again, so really consolidating that victory and building up the margin that she is holding at the moment over second place.
Yeah, we'll have to check these splits, because the one we've been given for 10K is very quick, 30:24. So if that is actually correct, the 30:24 was correct, then she is well inside record pace, well inside the pace for breaking Bridget Koskai's best in 2019. Actually, well, that's come up on my computer. The 31:27 was the 7-mile split, but it's actually the 10K, so that is a bit slower. I was going to say 30:24 would be incredibly
Yeah,
quick.
I know, 31:27 it is through 10K, and Lokedi 31:44, so that gap is continuing to grow and grow. And incidentally, the split for Koskai on that 64.28, clocking was 30.53.
Yeah, but given that previous mile was a 4:54, then maybe she's all of the mile splits tend to be a little bit up and down just because of the nature of the course, as we mentioned. But there you see, he's at the front. What we shouldn't forget here is that Mo Farah raced last week, had a bit of a cold, he ran pretty well in the half marathon in London. And this field here, he knows a lot of the athletes incredibly well. But he's not here just to wave goodbye. We know that Mo, until he can't win this race, only then, I think, will he start to think about the emotion of taking part in his last race. But he will, for a long time here, will be in contention. And when we get to 8, 9, 10, 11 miles, if he's still close, then the others will start to get a bit worried.
Absolutely. I mean, he is, and we've delighted in watching him be the ultimate competitor. And how many times when he's been down and out almost has he managed to pull it out and to raise the bar once again in terms of performance. And I'm sure he would dearly love to be able to do that today. Bitterly disappointed last week to have a cold and doubtful whether he would even be able to start in the big half. Was able to do that, but not happy with the level of his performance there in terms of the training and the work that he'd put in alongside Bashir Abdi and Andrew Butchart. They've been training hard for this, and definitely he knows that as it gets towards the end of your career, it's harder and harder to get that body to perform in line with where your mind would like it to be able to perform and in line with where the work is that he's put in training. But if anyone can do it out there today with the support that he's going to have from the sides of the road, but also within the race, I think that's one thing. It meant something for Bashir Abdi to be able to come in and be a part of the celebrations. Mo being someone that he's looked up to, I think, his whole career, and now maybe stepped ahead of him. That so many people back here on these shots as well will have seen Mo grow through to where we are today, through those 6 victories and many other participations in so many big races across the country, and give the inspiration to many people out there starting today. So good luck to everyone. Around 2 hours, which would be phenomenal.
Can't even imagine what that must be like. He's doing a great job with Jim, helping him. They're trying to stay as close to the middle of the road as they possibly can, quite obviously, and the rest of the field will gradually catch them, but given the chance to get a few miles down the road before the real masses start to collect around them. Well, good luck, lads. That looks like warm outfit to be taking part today. Quite a lot of our armed forces folks are out there. Talk about them a little bit later as well. So Paris Jepchirchir had picked up the pace. We saw 4:54 mile. This is the section, there's York Avenue just off to the right there, the garage, and then they'll come past the Robin Hood pub. I think we should rename the Robin Hood pub. We'll come back onto that later. Maybe let's think of a pub name that Mo could have. Anyway, Paris Jepchirchir well on our own. Look at those split times there, Paula. I mean, the 6th mile is quite flat, and into the 7th, so if anything, a little bit up. So she's obviously picked up the pace.
Yeah, and looking very, very focused and settled into a rhythm now. You can see not too concerned about those ups and downs in the actual mile splits. It's more about maintaining that rhythm of effort as the slight undulations in the course kind of work their toll on this stopwatch. She's more tuning into how she feels. And Lucchesi, although that gap is growing and growing and is now 21 seconds ahead, well, that gap between first and second, Lucchesi looking very smooth.
So the men coming through Gateshead. A little look around, some drinks already been handed out. And I've had so many people chatting to me over the last couple of days about what do we do when it's hot. And I said, drink early, because the elites do, you should as well. So taking on liquid at a very early stage is so important. Andy Butchart trying to hang on to this. This is quick, doesn't it? You've got all the big names in there, Edris pushing things along. And meanwhile, back here at the finish line, Tanny?
Daniel Sabris had
a field that we weren't sure whether Dan would be able to hold off David. A little smile there from David Weir. It'll be interesting when we speak to them, find out what they thought around how hot it is out there, because yeah, we're sitting in nice cool conditions here, but I can sense that it's getting warmer and warmer. I wouldn't have thought it would have impacted them too much.
It doesn't impact them so much because they're moving so much quicker. You get, you know, a lot of advantage of the wind. So, you know, you don't feel the temperature in the same way that runners doesn't. And when they're out for only 40-odd minutes, you know, it doesn't impact them in that way. For the runners further down the field, the weather is going to be a little bit harder.
Okay, meanwhile, back in the men's elite race, Paula, I think that was a slightly slower mile that they've just gone through. They went through the first couple pretty quick. They've got the gap. The main guys are in there. But you can just sense that group's just come together a little bit more. Andy Butchardt's just looking more comfortable at the back of the group than he was half a mile back.
Yeah, and they've really settled down now after that first quick mile. 4:28 is, of course, downhill through 3 miles in 14:11. And yet just a little bit of consolidating, taking on water as we saw in that previous shot, just making sure that they just all stay hydrated. And indeed, the guys in there like Butchart and like Bashir Abdi getting ready for marathons, they do want to practice the fueling and just taking on liquid and being able to do that comfortably at pace.
Well, it's slowed a little bit, but not much. You know, they've settled into this steadier pace. So they went through 5K in 14 minutes and 11. It's not slow, is it? But the record pace is just under 14 minutes. But this is a good, solid pace being set. And it's actually a good pace for where Mo is at, you know, in his... where's he at in his career? He's at the end of his career. So still to be running, you know, a hard pace like this and forcing the pace as well. It's great to see. As I said, what hasn't diminished is his competitive spirit, and he will go with this as long as he can, and he will try his best to win this for as long as he can. Yes, there are some great athletes in this, some people who are running very, very well, including Abdi. Tola we're not quite sure about, but they're not going to hand it to him, let's put it that way.
Look at that, amazing shots that never get old, do they? The crowds of runners teaming it across the bridge. When do the red arrows come over? That's going to be soon, isn't it?
Yeah, so all of the pomp and ceremony that goes around the Great North Run has just got bigger and bigger over the years, and as has been mentioned, you know, the guys we were talking about, and Eddie Howe's maybe sampled for the first time, the whole of the Northeast becomes a kind of cauldron in which all of the activities around the Great North Run, which began on Friday, incidentally, on the quayside. We had the British Mile Championships and 5K Championships as well. So a few of our track elite athletes were kicking around. And it's continued right through the weekend. All the junior athletes had their chance yesterday, and we'll be telling you everything that's been happening over the last couple of days. But people have come from all over the UK, all over the world, as we always say, to fill up every single hotel within about a 50-mile radius of Newcastle. I was actually staying in Sunderland last night, and as I got up early this morning, there's quite a few people that decided to stay there. People have their strategies. We'll talk about that later, about how they get to the start and friends to the finish, where they meet, where do we park the car, do we drop our bags off at the finish, all of those sort of things go into race preparation. Thankfully for the elites, they don't have to think about that.
No, they just have to think about their cooling strategies, and yeah, tipping a bottle of water over it is about as much as you can do at this point. It's not super warm, certainly not close to what we saw in Budapest in the World Championships a couple of weeks ago, but it certainly is warm. And to try and stay cool and use those different techniques, tipping water over your head, using the sponge as we saw Perez Jepchirchir using then, very much an indication that these women are operating at a very fast pace. Perez Jepchirchir using then, very much an indication that these women are operating at a very fast pace.
And a big win in the Great North Run. Miles ahead of the rest of the field. We'll keep an eye on their second and third shortly. But in the men's race, a little bit of pressure on here. And it's Tola, Tamarit Tola, the world marathon champion last year in Eugene. And don't forget, if you still haven't had your full fix of track athletics, the Diamond League final next week in Eugene, next weekend, next Saturday, Sunday. Watch out for that on the BBC. But Tola keeps looking behind her. When you do a big break like this, that's the first thing you do. You start thinking, is it working? Is it having an effect? And it is.
Yeah, and of course no big screen like there is in the track to be able to look up and see the effect that the surge or the lift in pace that Tola has put in is having on the rest of the field. He can't see the shots that we can see, and we can see the damage and the first casualty to that. Well, Mo Farah and Gidey have become a little bit detached, but behind that, Andrew Butchart dropping off the pace. Probably not a huge surprise, given he was in that 10,000 metres in extremely hot conditions in Brussels on Friday night, so has to be still feeling that in his legs.
Yeah, Gidey runs for Ireland, and Mo, just watching those three, and they are three big names, the world titles, Olympic medals, over, from the 5,000 up to the marathon, in that trio ahead of him. And he knows all of them pretty well, particularly Abdi and Mukhtar Edris. Raced them on so many occasions, so he'll be making this judgment on, okay, they've picked that up, and I just need to see what happens here. Let them go for now. It's still quite early in the race here. They haven't reached, they've got another mile or so before they get to the halfway point, but Mo deciding that that's a bit too quick.
Yeah, and as we talked about earlier with the decision that Charlotte Purdue had to make it in the women's race, similarly here, Mo has to tune into his capabilities and to commit to that and to seeing it through. And he will be taking note up the road ahead of him of the fact that Tola and Bashir Abdi starting to detach themselves now from Mukhtar Edris. So 4 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, marathon season on the major, the World Marathon Majors getting into full swing. It's Berlin, and then we have Chicago, and we have New York as well. But for Mo, he doesn't have to worry about all of that sort of stuff anymore. And I think for now, he's just going to be thinking, okay, they've got away. It is a hot day, it's a warm day, you never know. That's a quicker mile that they just ran a 4:37. And I think that's the thing, when you run a slow mile, 4:37 in itself isn't incredibly quick, but it's because it's a 10-second pickup from the previous mile, and that's why Mo's having looked at his watch just to go, is it me or is it them?
And that's where he has to just, well, he's very, very used to this, just being able to tune into his own pace, and he probably, well, I'm not sure whether he'd want to be running on his own or not. He maybe doesn't want to have a Gete right behind him there, but to have some company and be able to work with someone else at this stage in the race is not a bad thing either.
Yeah, we weren't sure what to expect from Tola. I mean, he was really engaged in that World Marathon Championship for a long time. And then, but when the pressure came on, that's when he, you know, he started to look a bit ragged and he fell apart and eventually dropped out. But for a long time, I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, you know, he's up for defending his title here. And it's quite hard, I think, when you've run that far. He's run, you know, the best part of the marathon. I think he only stopped at 38K. Once the medals were gone and he knew he had no chance. But that's still a long way to run in those conditions. He still would have had some of that in his legs.
He surely has to, particularly given that he was the one, as you said, pushing that pace and right up there contending up until 35K, and then he struggled on for another 3 kilometers before deciding to call it a day. And absolutely, once you reach that point, once you've really passed kind of 30K, then you've started to take something out of the tank. If stopping before 30K, you can bounce back and kind of use the training and the fitness that you've built up to be able to put in a good performance later, but now it's tough to recover.
Just want to mention one or two others. We said there's you know, some all sorts of lads from the Northeast running contingent are pushing Drew Graham, who sadly became paralysed with an accident in America, I think it was. Drew at Gosforth Harrier. Looks warm now, and as I said, this temperature will keep rising, and we know there's been a lot of good advice been handed out to the 50-odd thousand who are going to head towards the finish line. And we always say follow what the elites do. The elites drink regularly, and you can see Perez both drinking and using the water to try and cool herself down as well. But she went through, she's just gone 10 miles, I think, has she, Paula? 50:41, yes.
So slowed to a 5:05 mile into that 10th mile. Must be starting to get into the pull up the hill from 9 to 11 miles. It's not really an uphill, but it's definitely a gradual incline that will certainly be reflected in those slower splits, as you can see there, 5:15 and a 5:06. And then it will flatten out a little bit, that steep drop, and then the run in on the seafront. But certainly now working very, very hard, as to be expected when you set off as quickly as she did through the first 5K. It's going to make it tough in these conditions, but still strong.
Yeah, this section up along John Reed Road up to Temple Park, and then you head towards the Nook, and you get the 10 miles out of the way. Then you can start to think about those last hard 2 or 3 miles. But these two still running strongly. Sharon Locady's not miles behind, you know, and you always wonder when you see somebody's split time start to drop off. You know, what a 30-second lead suddenly becomes 20 seconds and 15 seconds. But for the time being, she's safe in front. But Locady looks pretty strong, comfortable.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the gap. It's what, 44 seconds. Which, as you say, is not insurmountable by any means, particularly when the conditions start to take a toll, and fatigue can happen very, very quickly. No signs of fatigue so far, though, from Tola. Very much eyes focused on the road ahead of him. Just a few strides ahead, an occasional sneaky glance back that doesn't really give anything away that he's actually looking back, but he's trying to spot how close Bashir Abdi is to him. He will be able to hear his foot strike as well, so that's also useful when you are detached and there's not too much noise from the sides of the road. You are able to hear whether somebody is still sitting right behind you, and it can get a bit annoying.
All right, Mo on his way, but here are our friends, the Red Arrows.
Heads up, guys, here we come.
Well, that is always a spectacular sight, and the Red Arrows paying their own tribute to not only Sir Mo Farah, but to the 50-odd thousand people taking part today. Great North Run wouldn't be the same without them, and then they'll head down to South Shields. They always give us an incredible display, weather permitting, while everybody waits for their loved ones and those that they're coming to support, and of course the stars as well. Great to see them here. And great to see this race at the front there. Tola is forcing the issue. Well through halfway. Here are the 10K splits, 28:31. And it is a day for running pretty quick. So these guys heading for something certainly sub 1 hour at the moment if they are running together. I think when you're running together, the pace is less likely to drop. Someone's going to be feeling good and pushing it on. And it looks as though Tola's the one. It's just a case of whether he manages to keep this going. Mo, 24 seconds back, as you say, as you see on there. Andy Butchart a little further back in 6th. But they are moving.
They're certainly moving, and those gaps are starting to stretch and stretch. You can see back to Hamid Ben Daoud, they're 1 minute and 27 back. So really the kind of the first two certainly away, but behind that, 10 seconds, or 14 seconds from Sir Mo Farah back up to Edris ahead of him.
Yeah, it just looks a little more laboured for Mo, doesn't it? You know, it's going to be hard work from here, but I promise you he won't do anything other than run as hard as he can. Look at Gidai thinking, I could beat Mo Farah today.
Look at his eyes as well, focused on the back of his head, aren't they? They're not looking anywhere else, just holding on, concentration.
One or two others to wish good luck to. I mean, running in a costume today as well. We saw the guy with the tight bib, and that was phenomenal. I can't wait to see those two. Well, there's two of them, wasn't there? Really look forward to see how they get on. But yes, running in a costume today, I think there's been various bits of advice about, if you've got headwear, maybe take it off, try and help you cool down. Well, we're into the Nuuk area here, where there's a bit of shade. There's the trees along the road here managed to, certainly this time of the day, give a little bit of shade. But Perez Chepchurch here just focusing on trying to keep going because she is slowing.
She is slowing, but they are also slowing behind her as well. So she slowed to that 5:21, and Lokedi ran a 5:31 through that 11th mile. So that gap is growing, it's approaching a minute now as they prepare to drop down onto the seafront and the nice mile flat run in along the seafront in South Shields.
Yeah, Lokedi probably can't see Perez. I think it's when you suddenly be able to get a glimpse and you think, well, hang on, I wasn't seeing her before, now I do. But that gap is, what is it now, 50-odd seconds? Yeah, 53 seconds. So it's got bigger, and Shannon Lokedi, although she looks as though she's moving better, if anything. She's herself is slowing down as well. But these two well ahead of Charlotte Purdue, still in third place. But just less than 2 miles to go. Mukhtar Edris, I thought he might go well today, actually, Edris. You know, he's been running a few road races. He won a good half marathon in Milan. He's had a couple of decent performances on the roads at shorter distances as well. He is a track exponent. Beat Mo in the 5,000 in London back in 2017, and as I mentioned on the start line, went on to defend that title rather surprisingly, because he had a lot of injury problems. I think Achilles were his main issue. Bounced back in 2019, and then because of that, I think got picked again when many were thinking, why are they putting him in the team? But sometimes I think they just trust his ability to perform well, but he hasn't quite been able to rekindle that sort of form on the track, certainly over the last year or so.
And I think the main reason that he's not been able to go with this today is just the sheer pace that these front two are moving at. Tamarat Tola still pushing on hard. And yes, the 7th mile is downhill, but they covered that in 4:27. So Mark Butler's just passed me that stat, and that certainly explains why Mukhtar Edris has not been able to go with it. And for the first time, perhaps Bashir Abdi is just starting to really struggle and have to work very, very hard to be able to stay on the heels of Tamarat Tola. And is that a decisive gap that's now opening up? It looks like it to me.
Well, this is decisive from the former world champion. Tamarat Tola looks good, doesn't he? He's moving really, really nicely, and at a real pace, as Paula said, that quick 7th mile, which isn't an easy mile, and he's got a couple of tough ones ahead. There's the Robin Hood pub. Is it still called the Robin Hood? I'm not even sure it is. It wasn't my day anyway. He now will be concentrating on getting to that next right turn, which takes them up John Reed Road, up that, as Paula was mentioning, that 9th mile where it just drags on a bit. You know, it's a long open section, and it just slightly uphill, or certainly 2 slightly uphill sections, but it is a bit of a drag. So you've got to be confident when you're making moves like this to move away from the field that you're still running strongly, and he looks as though he is.
Yeah, he looks as though he's perhaps running with a little bit of frustration. I think he certainly got himself very, very ready for the World Championships marathon, the defence of his world title, and then to not be able to perform as he wanted to, and indeed to be able to finish the race must have frustrated him. So to be able to come back and bounce back is often the best way to come back from a disappointment, is to be able to go right back into racing and to show the good shape that you've worked yourself into.
Well, just over 1 mile to go. The 12-mile mark passed just after you make the turn onto the seafront here at South Shields. She's negotiated a very steep drop down from the Marsden roundabout. And although it's been an emphatic performance in terms of the win here, she'll probably look at the time and go, okay, you know, when you're preparing for a big marathon, often a good fast half marathon is what you're looking for. It won't be that quick today. Maybe the conditions have had something to say about that, but she's had the road pretty much to herself since what was probably about 3-4 miles, and Sharon Locady did her best to stay with her, but that gap, as we mentioned earlier, is best part of a minute, and these two well clear of third. What do you think someone like Chepchirchir would have been looking for? You know, when you're heading to somewhere like New York, it's a loaded field in New York as well. And New York's one of the unusual marathons, which I think she thrives at, because we know she's won the Olympics. Well, it doesn't have a pacemaker, so it's a racing marathon rather than the fast-paced races.
Doesn't have a pacemaker, does have a lot of inclines, ups and downs over the bridges as well, which I think is also a factor in so many of the top marathoners perhaps choosing that this year, look with an eye towards the Olympic marathon next year in Paris.
Olympics, well, doesn't have a pacemaker, so it's a racing marathon rather than the fast-paced races.
Doesn't have a pacemaker, does have a lot of inclines, ups and downs over the bridges as well, which I think is also a factor in so many of the top marathoners perhaps choosing that this year with an eye towards the Olympic marathon next year in Paris, which is also not going to be an easy course. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs and steep drops and climbs within that race, so a lot of the athletes choosing to prepare themselves for that, and perhaps a factor in why Jepchirchir has chosen today to go out extremely hard. Glance back at the men's race and look how quickly now that gap has grown from Tamarat Tola back to Bashir Abdi in second place, and certainly now he's away and clear, and the only person he's racing now is himself to the finish.
Yeah, he made that right-hand turn, and this is the bit we were talking about. It's a bit of a drag here, so if you see the next mile a little slower, it's not necessarily because he's slowing down. It's just a tough bit of the course here. I'm sure that shower there will be put to good use later. Just been told by Mark 4:20 for that 8th mile, and that is very quick indeed. And Bashir Abdi decided to take an opportunity to go through the shower. He looks very tired in second now. Big gap behind him to Mukhtar Edris, who's third, and then Mo still in 4th place for the time being. But Tola has judged this pretty well, it looks as though he has, and although he's still got a good hard 3-4 miles of running, he's got the race won, you would say that, because he's not going to fall apart, not in a half marathon. I think it's just a case of whether he can get well under the hour mark now.
Yeah, looks very, very comfortable, and of course a lot further on than all of these runners are now. You can see some of the pace flags fluttering there. Those pacers do an amazing job out there of guiding people to the times that they're aiming for, times that they've spent a lot of the year working towards, and probably wouldn't have anticipated as beautiful a day as it is today to be out there racing. But stay hydrated and keep yourself as cool as possible out there. Good luck to everybody still waiting to cross that start line.
One better than last year when she was second. Peres Jepchirchir, one of the best road runners in the world, here at the Great North Run again, and this time heading for victory. She can start to enjoy this now. You've kind of got over, there's a little bit of a hump, if you like, and then you crest that rise, and it's slightly downhill then over the last half a mile or so to the finish. You can see it all laid out in front of you. The finish line in the distance, the crowds gathered, and look at the crowds already. And we're not even close to seeing Mo yet, and the 50-odd thousand coming, and these crowds will just continue to build. So many go to watch the start, and then they make their way to South Shields here. But she's done a great job, Paula.
She has. She made it tough for herself, as we said, by going out so hard in the first 5 kilometers, but has held on strongly. Yes, she slowed, but everybody else behind her has slowed even more. So a strong
have run quicker than 68 minutes before now, but she hasn't, but she's going to do it today.
And that personal best of 68.
And she certainly delivered.
See that reward.
And even today, normally we have a little bit of a breeze at the coast, but nothing today. So nothing to hold up Tamarit Tola. Heading towards the 10 mile, the 15k, 10 mile, the 50k already passed, I think. 42.27 for Tola, so still going really strongly. Look at that lead now, it's stretched out to over 30 seconds. And Mo might have a little thought, could I get third? We'd have to certainly go some to catch up Mukhtar Edris, who is slowing down. Gidai still on Mo's heels. And then Andy Butchart another minute or so behind in sixth.
Looks so easy, doesn't he, there? Tola just barely sweating in these warm conditions, as we've said, not as warm, of course, as he faced and wasn't able to handle a couple of weeks ago, but certainly warm conditions. And you can see there, Bashir Abdi is finding those conditions warm and is finding the pace a little bit hot. He committed and tried to stay with Tamarit Tola and has now had to settle back into his own rhythm. That's why he's checking his watch just to confirm what kind of pace he is running on, and is that working towards the overall plan building into the Chicago Marathon.
Yeah, he looks tired, doesn't he? He's grabbing the water. Here's Mo, and Mo with Gidai still on his heels and looking for a bit of glory for himself today, and why not? One of the world's all-time great athletes, and even if it is his last race of his career, then Gidai will be thinking, yep, I've got a chance here of making a little bit of a name for myself, or certainly getting a little bit of pride to try and get past Mo, but he definitely won't let that happen easily. But they're about he probably can see Edris ahead of him in third place, but that gap, if anything, is probably just growing a little bit. They've all slowed down. They've all kind of dropped off, with the exception of Tola. The rest, Abdi, Edris, and then Mo and Gidai have all slowed much more than Tola. Tola's still got a chance of getting close to the 1 hour mark. He's, you know, you'd have to finish fairly strongly to do it, but he's certainly got it within range.
Yeah, if we look at and compare through 10 miles, 45:40, and when Martin Matati set that course record way back in 2011, he went through in 44:41 through 10 miles. So a minute back from that would make you just exactly under, or squeezing under that hour mark, which would be a very, very strong running. And he has slowed down now. That last mile was a 4:45, which is substantially slowing from the 4:20, but is, of course, going into that long pull up, and he's still on a little bit of that incline, which also explains why the times are a little bit slower.
Well, there's Sonia Samuels, and Sonia. Tola, well clear. And the Nuke is a little bit quiet this morning. There's not many of the shops open on a Sunday. I had my first ever cola float in an ice cream shop there. Ever have them, Paul?
Might be a fair few runners coming through that point that would really appreciate a cola float at that point, I think.
Exactly. Good support, though, growing along the road, and then that amount of people that we're seeing there just continues to get bigger and bigger as they head down to the coast and then make that left-hand turn. He's not that far away from it now. Just looking, you mentioned that fast time that Matati had run, but he actually slowed in the last 3 miles. He was running 4:40s for his last 3 miles. He's just gone through 11 there, 50:24. So he's still about a minute. He's still close, you know. I mean, I'm not sure he's that bothered about running, whether he runs 59:58 or whether he runs 60:15. But he is close. And on a day like today, when, yes, the headlines are going to be with Mo Farah, but Tamrit Tola heading for victory and what could be a pretty impressive time as well, given the conditions.
Yeah, the conditions certainly making it tougher, but that 1 hour, no matter how much improvement we still keep seeing with particularly the shoes as well, taking a leap forward, that still is a big barrier for them to aim at. And I think that carrot dangling along the seafront for him will be some motivation just to try and pick up the pace a little bit more, and even though the victory is sealed, to be able to dip below the 1 hour mark would still be something special for Tamrit Tola. And Mo Farah is still desperately trying to shake it, who is not interested in trying to share the work and trying to work their way back towards Mukta Edris up the road ahead of them, although that gap is continuing to grow ahead as well. At the last count, I think it was, yeah, it's still growing, so it's now above 40 seconds, back 45 seconds from Mukta Edris to this duo of Mo Farah and Efrem Gidey.
Well, he's got a chance of a season's best, because last week he ran 62.43, I think it was, and this he's heading for about 62.5 minutes, depending on how he finishes this. So we'll keep an eye on that. That's not really the story, though, is it? So 5:03, Paul, I'm just pointing out, that is a very slow mile through 11. So I'm not sure that's right, though, because we had a 10-mile split at 45.40 and an 11-mile one at 50.24, which would be 4:44.
I'm not sure it is correct.
Yeah,
4:45 is coming up on the computer,
yeah.
so I think that split is maybe from the women's race.
So he's still very close to the 60-minute pace, which is phenomenal. And why not? He is one of the world's great marathon runners. Didn't go his way at the World Championships. He's had to reset his season after that, and has got a late call to come to the Great North Run. And I'm very pleased he said yes. Down the really sharp drop as Abdi is very, very tired, and you can see Edris in the background. That gap is starting to be one in which Edris is probably thinking, I've got you in my sights. There he is, what, 15, 20 seconds behind maybe?
Yeah, I think that split actually was Bashir Abdi's split through that mile, so 5:04 is what's come up on the computer. 5:06 though for Edris, so that they both are struggling, and I think paying the price for trying to stay with Tamarat Tola on a day like today. And we know that Bashir Abdi on Friday night found the conditions too warm, and it was very, very hot, and still in bright sunlight in Brussels, and I think above 30 degrees for that 10,000 meters. It's nowhere near that warm today, and there is some shade from the trees, as you can see on the road there, but he doesn't look comfortable and looks as though he is struggling at this point.
Well, Tola came to this race in 2019, and if he didn't know before he came here what the race was all about, Mo won it on that day, and I'm sure Tola thought, I'd love to come back one day and win. And it was quick, he was under an hour on that occasion, but only for second place. But today he's heading for his first win here, and it's at the minute looking like a comfortable one. Just reading some of my notes here, rather apt. There's a charity which helps people support them through baby loss. It's called Saying Goodbye. Kevin Ryan, Chris Warren running for them today. Good luck to Kevin and Chris. Hope it's going well for them. Even Samo is looking a little tired. It's hot and a day which for spectating is absolutely fabulous, but you just have to be careful when you're out there running today. Pace it right, and Tola's certainly done that. Did he get his 12-mile split there, Paula? I'm going to have missed it when he turned the corner. We'll get that very, very short. It doesn't really matter because he's heading for victory. There you can see the 12-mile marker behind him. This little bit of an uphill bit, and then when, as I mentioned earlier with the women, you just crest the rise. And you can see there, we're going to be supporting Mo's last mile. So it's a mile to go exactly from that point because, of course, this race is a half marathon distance, which is 13.1 miles, thereabouts. So another 4:47. He's close. He's looked as though he's just picked it up a little bit there, hasn't he? And Abdi on that. This hurts, doesn't it? When your legs are tired and then you've got this steep drop down the hill, it hurts.
It is. It's a hill you want to get down because you want to get into that last mile and you want to make this turn, but to absorb the shock as you come down the hill and kind of use also that momentum to be able to make that corner well. And you can see the hay bales at the bottom. That's probably a little bit of the chairs that are really coming down the hill really quickly. And back to Samo Farah, who's still on that long pull up to be able to then drop down that hill into his last mile. And that's going to be an emotional one for him. A lovely, relaxed running style of Tamarat Tola.
When he's flowing, he certainly covers the ground superbly well. He's enjoying this now. It's a downhill section. He's just through 20k, and he knows that many of these people have come to cheer on Mo Farah. He's been here before. 100% gets what today is all about. But this is his moment, his opportunity to shine here, and the former world champion can put much of the disappointment behind him that he had to suffer in Budapest. I know he dearly would have loved to have won that world title again, of course he would, but the decision to come here to the Great North Run has been fully vindicated, and he's performed incredibly well. Think we'll see him, Paula, later in the autumn somewhere else?
I think so. I think this is a man who is clearly in shape, and things just did not click for him over that marathon distance in Budapest, and now trying to make amends for that. And I think when you run as strongly as he has done today and crush that field behind him in conditions that are tough as well, he will want to find a fast race now to be able to show the shape he's in.
Well, Mo is now starting to, I think, lift himself out of his racing mode and start to think about what all of this means. He's acknowledging the crowd. Thankfully for him, he's got rid of Gidai. And I think perhaps this was just him thinking, I'd like to savor these last few moments for myself. He has a little look behind just to check there's a gap there. Looks at his watch one more time. Come on, Mo, one more mile. What have you got?
This is the dilemma, isn't it, where his mind perhaps wants to savour this and take a little bit longer, but his body is screaming, no, let's just get this over with, because it's still been a tough run out there.
Well, at the front, Tamrat Tola. To stick to his task, the Olympic medalist who we know would have had ambitions to have run great on Friday night in front of his Well, I remember a very, very young Mo Farah coming to the commentary box. Brendan and I were at the cross-country championships, and I think it was in the mud of Ostend, and he two-time world 5 You run a bit better, Mo. We might do. And guess what? Since those days, he's better. I remember him in the European now the show their appreciation for one of the greatest athletes this country's ever seen, one of the great 60 seconds of a race. You know, those brilliant last 500 meters, 400 meters, 300 meters in so many championships. You know, that last minute belonged to Mo, didn't it? Those last 60 seconds.
An amazing support. It's ended my career, and I wanted to come out here, celebrate. Tried my best in the race, but it was tough. But without the support of the crowd, I wouldn't got through it. And honestly, it's been an amazing career.
It does feel like a fitting place, doesn't it, to finish your competitive career, because you've had so many successes on these roads and people come out and love you and support you. Often at the end of seasons where you've won gold medals, you still come out here. How important has this race been to you?
It's very important to have a race like this. The team has, you know, made this the event it is today, and without the support and the community itself in Newcastle, it won't be the same. And in the race.
We want to hear what you've got to say, and that microphone wasn't doing it for us, Mo. Mo, I know that, you know, people can't quite believe this is the end, because we've been so much of you. We've invested so much in your emotions, because you wear your heart on your sleeve. That big smile, that huge enthusiasm, those massive successes. You were running today. What was going through your mind?
There was a lot going through my mind today, but you know, as I said, this race, I wanted to end my career here in Newcastle. I won it 6 times and had some amazing memories where I came off the Olympics, come off the World Champs, and many times here I've won. And it's really important, I think, to come out here and give my support to the crowd, and as well as just take all that in and enjoy it.
And you have inspired so many people. Today we're looking at running, something that really inspires people to do great things in their lives, and running inspires people to overcome all kinds of difficulties. And I know for you, you know, you've talked very personally about the troubles, the strifes that you, and running has been instrumental in it.
Yeah, running is everything to me. As you know, I shared my story of what I went through as a child, and running is what saved me. And without having something to do and something that could make me happy, it would have been very difficult for me. And also, I just want to thank, you know, everyone who's been part of my journey. You see me as the Olympic champion and get the medal, hang down, you hear the national anthem, and that's you. But what we forget is the people who's behind you. Honestly, without the support of the people in my life, I wouldn't have got to the place I have, and particularly my wife, who gone through a lot, who's looking after the kids when time's away, when things are difficult. Without her support, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't have got to the place I have. And honestly, it's very emotional, because I guess, you know, I have to just go and enjoy myself now, time with my family and my kids. But all I know is running, and that's what made me happy for so many years. And at times I struggled, times I made, you know, got a race wrong, got a race right. But you learn about it and you understand more. And when you win something, you don't quite appreciate as much as when you lose. And last couple of years, and honestly, I struggled with many injuries, many times, doubt myself. And it's been a hard journey, because I haven't had the Olympics. If the Olympic came at the right time, I wanted to end my career at the Olympics. And that was the moment for me. I imagine and thinking, this is it. But it didn't go quite a plan, and you move on.
And here you are at the end. So ladies and gentlemen, one more time, the incredible, enjoy this, Mo, the incredible Mo Farah. Steve said, I'm pretty sure will be high-fived and hugged for every single minute that he stays here today. I'm sure he'll want to lap it up as well. And I know there is so much appreciation, mutual appreciation from these two knights of the realm. They, of course, are the subject of a brilliant documentary and interview that Brendan has done with Samo that you can $5 million for a range of great causes. The 42nd AJ Bell Great North Run is a reminder once again of the power of running to change lives.
written the incredible theme tune, and now you are running in your home race.
Yes, honestly, it's amazing just to be here and do it. It's the first time I'm doing the Great North Run, and I'm running for Mind, which is an amazing charity about mental health. And for me, doing this race, it's about going the distance, never giving up. Because at some point I'm going to get tired, at some point I'm going to feel like I want to give up, but I'm going to keep going. And that's kind of what you have to do in life. So yeah, that's why I chose to do this.
And in that moment, when you're struggling, what will you be thinking?
I would just think I need to keep going, and I might slow down, but I'm not going to stop. That's it for me.
Oh, for an absolutely fantastic course. Let's have a little bit of a look at the work you've been doing.
Yeah.
I've never done the Great North Run before. This is the first time I'm doing it, and I've lived in Newcastle almost my whole life. Doing the run and raising money for Mind, it's like a symbolic thing for myself.
I'm more of a storyteller, how I got here, all this effort. I'm gonna ride this wave, I swear like I can go forever. And they be talking like they run it, but them boy just jealous. And I ain't seen them move up once, so I can't say the fella.
Well, like running for Mind, it's like it's also symbolic for me.